All right, we have another one of black belts and boardrooms. Today has been a great day. Last week was a great week. So many humbling blessings that came on. So I'm excited about this episode, Amir. What's on your mind?
Renard, you sound like you had a stellar week, my friend. I will tell you, my week was a little challenging, but I'm not going to complain because I think leaning into chaos is always a wonderful thing. And speaking of chaos, I was thinking about all the activity that I see in my news feeds about how AI is going to take away jobs, how AI is going to change this, and how companies are going to get rid of human beings and they're going to replace them with machines. And I was just thinking, you know what? Today is probably a good day for us to maybe pick on AI a little bit as a conversation topic. But as you and I being martial artists, I'm thinking AI is really just one more tool for us. At least that's how I see it. And as I think about Taekwondo as a practitioner of a striking art, I see the tools have changed over time. And as a technologist, I see the same thing happening. So I think, to me at least, let's talk about AI and how over time we've observed in our own personal experiences the changing of the tools. What do you think?
I like it. I like that. That is a good segment for today. As we know, AI is not going anywhere. It is here to stay for the most part. I know people were at first skeptical, but now there's a business being built every single day around AI, the tools, etc. So, like you talk about martial arts and being a craftsman, owning that martial arts, getting better every day. It's the same thing with AI. So for you, Amir, what do you see far as AI and a craftsman? How's that going to look in the next year, 2 years, maybe even the next five?
Wow. I don't know if I can say about 5 years, but I'll tell you this. Just as a craftsperson. So I'll start from the craftsperson's journey or lens, and then we'll see where this goes in our conversation. So as a craftsperson, I know that if I start from myself as a martial artist, the things I knew and became aware about from a white belt to a yellow belt to black belt eventually, it changed. I became better and better at learning how to use the basic tools, punching bag being one of them, and then maybe using a harder sandbag as a way to strengthen my knuckles, and then maybe using, the rolling pin to strengthen your shin bones, as crazy as that might sound. But to me, those each and every one of those things were just tools that I did. So as a technologist, I use a computer. 20, 30 years ago when computers were still fairly novel, you didn't have access to these tools, and today we're talking about a pace where AI is just eclipsing every tool we've ever known. But not just eclipsing it, it's actually recreating how we think about computing in general. So as a craftsperson, I look at this thing and say, I used to use a keyboard, I used to use a microphone to dictate and still do. But now I have this thing that actually can, with a little instruction, do all kinds of things for me, like summarize my emails. So it's a tool that's very powerful, as an everyday companion. So when I think about as a craftsperson, what is it that I want to use or what do I expect from AI? I expect it to assist me. That's the starting point, and then how can it assist my team? So that's the leadership lens that I look at. But is it going to replace what I do? I don't know. I mean, I can definitely see it helping me become faster in certain ways. Just like in martial arts, we do push-ups so that we can punch faster. This is like my push-up buddy challenging me to do more push-ups.
Like that. I like that. And I agree, like going through martial arts, starting off at white belt, the black belt, you develop over time. And with AI, I agree, like, right now what we're doing at the company I work for, we're trying to find ways to get faster and AI is helping that, and will AI take your job right now? Not yet. Not yet, but it will take a lot of low hanging fruit, and there's a lot of those repetitive things that you're doing so that your team can start working on higher level things. You talk about, your AI agent is one. You're talking about, going into coding as well. I've seen people use AI in order to help them, get a little bit better in coding. How they're having an issue. A lot of people are going to ChatGPT, Gemini, etc., in order to make them better. So I think it's like you say, it's a helper. It's helping you get through some repetitive tasks. We recently had a guest on where he's been using AI, and all of a sudden he even said he feels like it's making him smarter because he's having those conversations with it. So I think that if people go in with a clear mind of where AI is right now and what it can be used for, I think you can actually become a little bit faster in your day-to-day tasks that you have, or it opens you up for more advanced tasks that you have. My team's gotten faster because of AI. I'll be honest, they have. Instead of having to manually ask questions, hey, we have our helper, ChatGPT, Gemini, etc., to ask those questions. But now you also think about is a segue a little bit. What's going to happen when AI is in with everything going forward? It's going to be your first level, second level, etc. It's going to be dealing with banking, etc. How much access is AI going to have? So even as being a craftsman, we need to learn, even when we learn from the instructor, what we're going to take from it and what we're going to learn ourselves. So it's a two-way street when it comes to AI. That's my thought for it.
Yeah, you're so I want to pick on the instructor piece a little bit. One of the things that we know AI is going to have the world's data. If you give it, it'll take it. And the compute power that we have today is becoming more and more energy demanding because of that. So if I think about the large language models, the GPTs out there, it is consuming tremendous amounts of energy just so that it can consume the tremendous amount of information that we ask from it. And that information comes from the data that we feed it. So if I have a system that is, or a machine that's able to give me knowledge based on all the facts it knows, tacit or otherwise, how good is that for me? And does it replace an instructor? So I'm actually leaning more along the lines of it doesn't replace the instructor because the instructor is going to think of new ways in which I could grow as a student or as the instructor will grow as a student themselves. So, does the instructor have all the facts of the world? Absolutely not. But one of the ways in which machines are missing a trick today, I think, is um, how can I conceive a future with only a view into the present? And that's kind of where I think people talk about AGI and how AGI is going to become the thing that makes that future possible. I don't know honestly how much energy that's going to need from the world. I don't even know if we have that kind of energy available today. But could you imagine what that'll do to the people if you have a machine that can actually replace an instructor? I think that's when we take the humanity away from human.
I'm going to agree with that. I think in certain aspects, there's certain ways where AI can't take over certain things. Certain jobs, and like going back to coaches, and even yourself as a martial artist, you could be shown a move, but there's 15 different ways or 200 other ways in order to do it. So that doesn't mean that the instructor's wrong, doesn't mean that you're wrong. You just found a new way in order to do that technique. So when you're dealing with AI, and I tell anybody, I was like, you got to take certain things that you're working with AI at with a grain of salt. It only knows what you're feeding it right now. So there may be a time where you need to be honest with yourself and look at it like, hey man, is that answer actually right? I've sat there before and worked with ChatGPT, and ChatGPT gave me something back. I was like, how did you even know that answer? And then it was just based off multiple times I've had conversation when it just filled in something that had nothing to do with the conversation I was talking about. So I tell people, take it with a grain of salt. Make sure that when you're working with it, some information is going to be true, but some information needs to come from you understanding what you put into talking with a Gemini, etc. Because some of that stuff is wrong. So it's not there yet. It's not 100% trustworthy. Going back to that. And when we talk about martial arts again, that one move that's done 200 times. Doesn't make the other 199 people who do the move wrong. It just means we perfected it a little bit differently. Because the thing I love about martial arts, thing I love about technology, things keep improving over time. You know, when you went back to how we first started with computers, you know, and of course it's going to show my age in the fact that the internet used to be a place you used to go to, not a place you walked around with on a regular basis in your pocket. You know, your laptop. It used to be a place you went to, you did what you need to do, and then you walked away from it. Now that is probably going to show my age on here. That's okay, but just talking about AI is not in, I would say, it's still a little bit in its infancy. You know, it's still learning, it's still trying to understand, but like you say, as a craftsman, it's not gonna take away everybody. There's certain aspects that you just can't take from you being a human being and having those conversations. It's therapy. Imma give you one aspect, being a therapist. I don't see AI all of a sudden taking the place of a therapist because there's just some human interaction that you need in order for someone to understand what you're going through, what you need in order to get past that hurdle, etc. Same thing with executive coaching. I don't see me going to an AI for an executive coaching. I feel like it's still going to be a human interaction in some aspects, but still people need to be open to where AI is going even as a craft.
Yeah. You just, I'm so glad you brought up the, going to the internet and then walking away because I grew up in that time. So I don't know what it says about me, but definitely I share that sentiment with you. So, that's exactly what we do with AI today. Hey, did you go to Gemini? Did you go to ChatGPT? Did you go to Claude or Perplexity or any number of these other AI systems out there? And that's kind of how we do, work today is you go to one of these AI agents, if you will, or these AI solutions. And I think ultimately, I think it's not hard to say that, or not a stretch to say that everything is going to be embedded with some level of AI type or large language or small language type systems or agents. We see this today. I'm part of the finance and payments industry, and to me, I see agents today that can make purchases on your behalf. You know, companies already have those technologies out there, including Visa and Mastercard, for instance. So if we imagine a world where you don't have to go back and forth, like going to the internet or going to an agent and it's just there for you, then it's a pretty incredible future. And the pace at which is what I come back to as well. But to your point about executive coaching, absolutely. And this is where I see value, because knowledge is it used to be you go to the internet, you have the world's knowledge. That used to be a thing that people would say. And today, you don't have to read copious amounts of text. You can ask a GPT and it'll tell you that, okay, this is what you want to know about topic X, whatever it is. So if I think about it from terms of students, a student can get tutored without having to hire a more expensive human to go along with it. So the barrier to entry for knowledge, I think, becomes smaller. But I also see that if I'm not reading everything and something's going to read things back to me and tell me what it is, what does that happen to my critical thinking skills, right? So coming back to the craftsperson, a craftsman or a craftswoman isn't really a craftsperson unless there is critical thinking involved. And that critical thinking is not going to come from a machine. That has to come from the human themselves. So does it mean that, we just give up the low hanging or the easy jobs that doesn't require the human? Yeah, probably. But it's not going to take away every single thing. I don't think I want a medical professional, honestly, that's a machine.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter if it's a general practitioner or anything else. I think I want an experienced human being that understands, not just the complexities of the human body, but it also understands what does it mean when I tell you to change behavior. I mean, that is life altering even without medicine. A machine telling me to change behavior, I don't know about that just yet. I'll use it to build a workout routine for, Monday through Friday maybe, but to change behavior, oh, that's a big stretch for me.
Man, I want to go back to where you're talking about the human factor. The human factor is so important in the sense that humans most of us want to try to solve things and evolve. That's the beauty of it. That's how, if you think about it, that's how AI came to form. Somebody wanted to try to solve something. And one thing that we are big on problem solving. How can we fix things? And I don't think that's ever going to go away. AI is going to assist with that. That's what happens now. If you sit there and think about it, you're talking to, any AI system, etc., you're trying to solve an issue for the most part. And that's because that's where our critical thinking comes from, etc. That moves it forward in that aspect. So as a craftsman, we're always trying to solve something. As a martial artist, we're trying to solve something. I always say we're playing chess, not checkers. So if you look at a chessboard, we're trying to solve to get to the queen. We're trying to solve an issue. So it's the same thing. I don't think that's ever going to go away, but AI will, make it a little bit faster for us. Yes. Will it help us solve some issues? Yes. Will it help us solve a lot of issues? Probably so. And AI was developed because somebody tried to solve a problem. So it's gonna get better. It's gonna be a bigger helper over time. But I don't think that human piece that we love even for ourselves, solving issues when we go back to martial arts, solving issues when we're training, we're trying to solve an issue. If I'm rolling with somebody, I'm trying to solve a way in order to tap that person, submit them, choke them out, whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to solve an issue that's at hand. And I don't think that's ever going to change for us. I just think right now, the way we're moving fast as far as AI is concerned. Man, it's leaps and bounds how fast AI is moving. I remember when people just talked about it, and little things happen here and there. But now in this era that we're going, AI is moving so fast that I think it's gonna speed up a lot of things for us in so many different areas.
Yeah. It's interesting. Listening to you speak, I'm thinking it's really helping us with our mental jujitsu, AI is. And I think that's a good thing in general. But it's not gonna necessarily execute the hand-to-hand combat, it's not gonna do the crossbow or the whatever the jujitsu technique, and my vocabulary of jujitsu is nowhere nearly as rich as yours, so let me ask you this, Renard, do you have enough trust in GPTs today to tell you how you should train as a jujitsu martial artist?
No. No, no, no. I don't think I would ever, after the years I have put in, of years that other martial artists have put in, I would not have AI and feel like that's trustworthy. AI is just grabbing information that it knows, but wouldn't be able to tell me down the line how I can change this different move, etc. That is from years of repetition, years of constant repetition, going to the mats, training your instructor doesn't finish just because he gets a black belt or he's at a certain level. He doesn't stop learning and start showing new moves. Like you say, in any martial arts, there are new moves created every single day. Some of them are just a different variation of what the original one was, so I don't ever see that happening. You'll never see me sit in front of any AI and say, "Hey, what are some new moves I could do in jujitsu?" and just take it from there. My honest opinion from it is my instructor, myself from repetitive training is what's gonna keep me, um, moving with new moves going forward when it comes to martial arts. So I don't I don't ever see someone going to a dojo and AI is running a class. I don't ever see that happen. I think that wouldn't even make sense in that area. Martial arts is comes from the person, the people that are part of it, and the only way it has gotten better over time is because new people have joined, people have seen new different moves, and people have created new moves. If you go back in jujitsu, there's always someone who has there's a martial artist who created the half guard. There's a person who founded jujitsu, etc. So I think that particular piece, especially when we're talking about martial arts, I don't think is always going to have a human element to it.
Alright. So I'm gonna challenge that thought just a little bit, only just because it sounds like it'll be a fun thing to do with you. Alright? So We live in Texas. Football is a big thing, and we know that coaches are constantly watching those reels,
Mhm.
from other teams, getting better. We do the same thing in taekwondo. We do the same thing in, pick any martial art, right? If it's competitive and it's got a competitive component to it, jujitsu no different. You're gonna watch how the opponent behaves under certain conditions. So, we're in terms of, using AI language, a multimodal being. We use sight, touch, speech, writing, etc. We're multimodal beings. Do you think multimodal AI will be able to have that advantage if it, was given a real footage for some previous match? What do you think about that?
Ooh, man. That's hard to explain because you almost wanna go to every movie that's been put out, some of that the conversation we're having, it shows out in movies. Do I think it's ever gonna happen? I don't know. I don't know. I love what we do as humans and how we try to decipher stuff so much. I feel like that'll be taken away from it. I love what we do because and I can go through martial arts, I can talk about sports. We analyze things. We figure out things how to get better. You know, that old saying, if you want to get better, you play with better people. So I don't think that's ever gonna go away. It takes from us if we are not humans and try to decipher things. Like I say, we always are trying to solve problems. That's how everything that we do has been created for the most part. We try to solve problems. So I don't think that's gonna go away. I don't think that's gonna go away. Like I said, AI right now is a helper. It does analyze, it can try to help you out in certain ways, but that human factor I think will always be around in some aspect.
So I'm gonna hold the line here a little bit more. Let's have some
Okay.
more fun with this thing, right? What about assistant coach? You know,
Oh,
handling
man.
all of those video reviews, telling the coach what they found, analyzing those tapes. What do you think about that?
See, so that wouldn't even be your defensive or offensive coach. That would be your film coordinator for the most part. Which I can see that. I can see that. I can see you using AI and analyzing every film that goes on in order to give you some of the key things. What are some of the gaps? What are some of the things that we can use in order that yes, I can see that happening. But head coach, no. Defensive coordinator, no, but can you use it to say, "Hey, I need you to do the film study for me. Give me like the top 10, key gaps on the defense that I can use in next game." Yeah, I could see that. I could see that on a regular basis, and it would cut down on having to use film time, and then it's just more studying on those key plays and going back and forth. But yeah, I could see that happening. Yes, I agree with that. I could see that
All right. So you and I are aligned there. I'm totally with you on that sentiment as well. So let's bring us back to what we do as technologists in corporate America. So I think about this as a leader, what can I do to help my teams get better? Right. So to the film coordinator example you just gave us, I can see AI being a tutor, for example, to or in my case, because I'm, leading an operational team, helping my operational folks who take these incidents every single day. So that's one way in which I can see AI helping my team is through knowledge acquisitions without having to have a senior person with them on a day-to-day basis. um, but I also don't see AI replacing that senior engineer on the team, right? That engineer has seen some things, has got copious amounts of tacit knowledge. They're going to know some things and recognize patterns that a machine who doesn't have the tacit knowledge, they will miss that gap completely. So I'm with you on that 100%. So if I think about technology and I think about the enterprise, I can see AI being a great coordinator of things as well as a tutor. So that's in my world. What about in your world, Renard?
Ooh, what? Well, that just made me think, and now I got a question for you since you asked me a whole bunch of questions. So
Okay.
I got a question for you. Do you think AI can take the place of an agile coach or a project manager?
Ooh, all right. So that is a tricky one, and I'll tell you why. Because I can answer it in one of two ways. I can give you the direct answer and say that project management, which does have very fact based Um, it's a fact-based discipline, something's going well, something's not going well, you produce reports. I think AI can do that part pretty well. Report generation, taking, maybe even notes during meetings when you have your agile, scrum ceremonies. It can do that stuff. So, will it completely replace the project manager? I think so. I think so. But I will tell you that the project manager, like everything that has happened over time with computing, becomes more of a hybrid role, right? So the human element of it, if I think about, can it do the ceremonies or the artifact generation? Yes. Can it do the people coordination? Because there's retrospectives, there's other things. How do you coach teams to become better together? That is going to be the time where they will be able to shine the most. And that to me blends now more into what maybe a program manager might also do or a scrum master might also do. So to me, more and more we're going to see roles become hybrid, where the human element becomes more and more available to teams, to enterprises. So instead of taking half my time or three quarters of my time writing that report as a project manager, I can now use that additional time saving to help teams get better and learn from the things that they do. So it's actually going to be a superpower for teams to have a project manager that also understands human dynamics, and that to me is a win for the enterprise.
I'm gonna agree with that, and that's why I wanted to ask that question. I agree with that. I feel like again, there's gonna be a hybrid. I can see AI listening to those conversations for project management, building the tasks, the notes, calendars, getting ready for the next meeting, sending those out. What's the next agenda, etc. Are we on task? Are we not? I can see AI doing that, and probably more than likely, AI is probably getting close to being able to be that partner in those scrum meetings, project manager meetings, etc. So I can see that right now. So I agree. I don't think it's going to take that human factor out of it yet. Completely replacing a project manager or Scrum, no. But can it add on? Say, okay, I don't like you say, I don't have to spend X amount of time doing these reports anymore. It's already recorded, it's already analyzed, and it's already factoring how long this project's going to take for me, and start doing some other stuff. And that's what I love about AI because at the end of the day, what I think is going to happen, which I'm sure we're not the first people to say this, is that AI is gonna take over, and then all of a sudden, we're gonna start doing more higher level jobs going forward. It's gonna start taking over like we started from what we started from when we are talking, the low-hanging fruit, and then all of a sudden, these new jobs will become available that are more higher level going forward. So, that's where I see AI is gonna take us. It's going to go back to I talk about a show Star Trek. Star Trek is heavily AI, is heavily computerized, so that means no one's going to, um, going to a university for these, lower meaningful jobs. AI take care of that for them. So I think in the sense when I go back and like we're talking about, AI is going to take your low hanging fruit right now, and it's going to start making available these higher end jobs going forward in technology.
Yeah, 100%. You know, um, two thoughts came to my mind as you were talking. One of them is, since you made a Star Trek reference, there's an exam that all captains or wannabe captains have to take. Do you remember that?
I
You
do
know?
remember that. I
And
do
when
remember that.
and the only person who gained that test was a character named Spock. So that test to me is an example of where AI can really help craft leaders and craft people who are experts being in a specific function or role. So to me, that is probably one of the ways in which we can benefit from having an opposing force that helps us get better. One of the ways in which, as you mentioned, if you want to get better, you find a better opponent. And to me, the next best thing would be to find somebody who can play that better opponent without finding more and more people to help you get better as a martial artist, right? So, but this is not martial arts, this is enterprise. So the second thought also that comes to mind is, coming back to your project manager and hybrid, inevitably we all talk about titles. What does that new title look like? The data analyst is now a data scientist, for example. And that's an example of how compute or computing in general has elevated the craft of just analyzing, or even the business analyst is now a data scientist in some capacity. So we've got titles that become hybrid over time. The webmaster who used to only build HTML is now also a mobile app developer, a full stack engineer eventually. So that's another example of how hybrid our jobs have become. So I think we'll see the same thing happening here. But as I think about the project manager, to come back to the point you were driving and the question you asked, we talk about durable code versus code that is disposable. And I think that's one of the ways in which we can think about how roles that are not technically software engineering oriented will be able to benefit from generating disposable code. So, for instance, if I go back to the project manager thing, I can generate a report using disposable code all day long. I might be able to even deploy code in a segmented environment in the cloud just using my assistant AI or that agentic or that agent AI that I have at my disposal. So I might choose as a project manager to say, okay, or whatever this future project manager title is, to say, okay, I'm not just going to email feed thousands of or hundreds of people in my organization this report. I'm just going to say, hey, if you want to know something, just go to this landing page, and I'm going to create these dashboards that you can pull information from. In my organization or my team, I tell them regularly, I hate email. I truly hate email. Part of the reason is that I get many emails a day, hundreds of them, a thousand of them in a week easily. And every single one of those emails is asking for my attention. So now I'm giving a limited resource to a machine or that is basically pushing information towards me versus using that limited attention span to then pull information when I'm ready to accept it and do something with it. So to me, one of the benefits that we'll see eventually is the disposable code being a vehicle in which we can create channels to pull information from, as opposed to just constantly pushing information to people. Because I'll tell you, I don't necessarily read every single report that comes my way. I don't think you do either.
Mm-mm.
You know,
No, no, not even close, not even close. I agree with the email thing too. I get way too many emails to say I've seen every single email that's come in my inbox. And honestly, email, is one of those factors that are not used as much as used to be. More people are now more in a conversational, either that Slack, Teams, whatever you're using at your job, that becomes the main source of the conversation. Emails in a sense or a thing of the past far as getting the information to each other. Now it's, I'm using Slack, I'm using Teams, etc. So no one pays attention to email anymore. You're trying to send an announcement about a major issue going on. No one's paying attention to email. So you send it in, whatever your messenger, your chat is for the business for them to be able to respond and see it a lot faster. So in that aspect, that's another thing that's changed over time. If you're just not even talking about AI, that changed over time. Email used to be the most heavily used thing, and now it's chat messaging because that's the way the world is now. We are more communicating quickly in text, etc. And now that's gone away. I know we just segue away from AI, but it's important to just see the evolution from an enterprise level what things have changed over time. And now AI is a big segment in there. You have your co-pilot, Teams has its own AI, Slack has its own AI now, Jira has its own AI now. So everyone is adapting AI into those systems to make it a lot easier, to make the systems that they're trying to use a lot faster going forward. So I think our end goal, what we're trying to do from an enterprise level, where we're going to start, we already see this now, we're going to have even smaller teams because AI is going to get adapted to it. But like you say, everyone's going to become hybrid. There's no one that's just going to be one person manning this particular system. They're going to have access to multiple systems and become more agile. Like you remember when IT used to have like 200 people part of IT. Nowadays, you can go into um, certain offices, certain teams, certain buildings where AI might be a six-person team. They become more agile. doers of multiple things, just not just one particular thing in general. So when AI is going to develop fast the way it is now. And like you say, disposable code, durable code, that is going to be a major thing. But um, there's a part of the unknown where you don't know what's going to happen yet. That's the part I'm interested in, and not in a bad way, that the unknown, but where is it gonna take us? Where is it gonna take it? There's so many different fields that AI is part of now. We got AI in the medical and healthcare, etcetera, which I'm very interested on the medical side for it. And just for what we do on a day-to-day basis, I can firsthand say AI is very helpful right now. It's helped me in many different ways in order to just have that conversation, especially from what I'm thinking, in order to move forward on certain things. So, um, I'm interested in the unknown. That's where I'll leave it at that for this topic. The unknown looks very bright. I'm looking forward for us to have another conversation on AI and see where it is then when we have that conversation.
Way to close this segment. I
Mhm.
agree with you, Renard. Let's pick it up again another day.
Yes, we will pick it up another day. And I will say, for our black belts and boardrooms listeners, I hope y'all are having a great day, and we will see you on the next one.